Hello everyone, welcome back to Optimize FPL. Like I said before, this is the Pizza Premier League. The winner of the cup or the league gets a free pizza courtesy of myself. I won it last year off of Reddit, and I thought that it'd be a cool idea, so I thought I'd bring it back. Link is in the description down below. Please feel free to join, it's completely free, and I look forward to seeing who the winner is. Good luck! Hi everyone, so welcome back. We are going to be going through every single price point from 13 million down to 4 million, who the best players are in each position, or I guess each price point, and yeah, we're just going to chat about it and see what we think. These are all my personal opinions, so obviously you can take them or leave them. It really doesn't really matter. But yeah, these are just things that I personally believe as an FPL player that I think these are the best players for each position at each price point. Okay, so starting off, we're going to be starting at 11 million to 13 million, just because there wasn't a lot of players that were anywhere between 11 million and 13 million. There's actually only 5 of them, and I've ranked them from top to bottom. Salah, obviously the top man. We don't really need to talk about him too much. He's projected to get the most points by quite a large distance, if I'm totally honest. I mean, obviously 2 points over 6 game weeks is not a huge amount compared to Son, but um, overall through the entire season, it adds up pretty quick. Up next, in my opinion, I think Son is a better FPL asset than Harry Kane, and the reason for that is just because of what happened last season. Son, top goal scorer, had a decent amount of assists. Like, he just looked really amazing. Gets the extra points for an assist, gets an extra point for a clean sheet. I think Tottenham defense is going to look a lot better this year, so I wouldn't be surprised if he was worth the 0.5 million more. The only reason that I personally would have Kane in my team over Son is just because Kane is a forward while Son is a midfielder. I don't know how I feel about having the double midfielders, like 2 midfielder spots being premiums. So I think having one premium forward, one premium midfielder, so that'd be Salah and Kane in my opinion. Yeah, after Kane, it's De Bruyne. A very good Manchester City asset, obviously. De Bruyne, he's going to be playing most games, if not every single game, unless he's injured. I think De Bruyne is definitely the best Man City asset out there. Holland is a very close second. Don't get me wrong. Holland is a great asset. I know a lot of people have him. Probably like 50% of people have him still. I think is what his percentage was at. I don't think he's that much better than Kane. Like for that percentages to be like that, I think that it doesn't make a lot of sense because we don't know what Holland can bring to the Man City team. We never really seen him. We never seen him in the Premier League, and a lot of the Bundesliga tax happens, and players come in with lots of hype and then they end up doing not so well. So I think it's definitely a wait and see for me personally, but I can understand why some people want to go for it. So yeah, honestly, any combination of these 5, like if you get 2 out of these 5, I think it's a great combination. Like if you get Salah and Holland, you're really not doing too much worse than you have Salah and Kane, in my opinion. If you have Son and Holland, maybe that's a little bit more differential. I mean, it's very differential in comparison, like to the selections. But I think that honestly, 2 out of these 5 are a necessity for any team. They're very important. I think having 2 premiums is really important this season, unless you're doing a set and forget team. Um, yeah, 2 premiums is very important to rotate captaincy, and also just in case somebody gets injured, you can just sell them very easily. Okay, so up next, there's not a lot of players in this category. It's the 9.5 to 10.5 million. Realistically, there's only 4 players, and they're all on this list because obviously they have to be because they wouldn't be anywhere else. So we have Sterling up top. I think he's definitely the best asset in the 10 million range. Starting for Chelsea, he's going to be starting every single game basically. He just came from Man City. He always gets lots of points when he gets to play. He's going to be Chelsea's like main man this season, to be honest, up top in the front 3. He's going to be huge for Chelsea this season. So if he can get up and running quickly, he's a great asset to have. I then have it ranked as Fernandes, Vardy, Ronaldo. Maybe Ronaldo and Vardy could potentially switch. It really depends. Ronaldo seems like he doesn't want to be there, let's be honest. He's like 37, 38. He wants to be in the Champions League still. So like if he stays at Man United, then he's probably a better asset than Vardy, but it's very, very close. I think Fernandes is definitely the better of the 2. Or I guess of the 3 of them, Fernandes is the best. Just because he's definitely nailed in that Manchester United midfield. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. He might be back on penalties if Ronaldo is gone or not playing every single game, so that brings back Fernandes and brings back the penalties for Fernandes. So I think that could be very, very influential to somebody picking him later on in the season. Like I know a couple seasons ago, it was Salah and Fernandes were the 2 main players in everybody's team to start the season off. But then second Fernandes lost his penalties to Ronaldo, he was kind of just like shipped out and nobody really cared about him anymore. But if Fernandes is in that team without Ronaldo, I think he's a hugely amazing asset that we definitely did figure out how to get into our teams. So up next in another category that doesn't have a lot of players in it is the 8.5 to 9 million range. There's actually only 4 of them again. Bowen, Darwin, Jota, and Richarlison. Richarlison definitely in last place. He's not even going to be able to play the first game of the season because of his ban. Richarlison also is just got a lot of rotation risk now because Kulusevski and him are going to be fighting for that right wing spot. Let's be honest, because they're not displacing Kane and Son. So Richarlison at 8.5 million, it's a lot of money for someone who's potentially not going to be playing. Jota and Darwin are kind of interchangeable. I think Darwin is a little bit better just because I think he's a little bit more nailed, honestly. Just because I think Jota also has an injury, from what I understand. So I think that Darwin definitely the better pick of the two. Bowen easily the best player in this category, 8.5 million. He got I think almost 200 points last season or just above 200 points. 8.5 million. He could be a really good asset. I think a lot of the reasons that people don't have him in their squad right now is just because West Ham's opening fixture is against Manchester City, and also they have a lot of really hard fixtures to start the season off. Once they have some easier fixtures, I think Bowen could be in everybody's team. He could become template again. I just think just it's really just because of the team that he's in that it makes him hard to pick, just because West Ham have such a hard fixtures, like I said. But Bowen could potentially be a very, very good asset later on in the season, but the first couple game weeks, I just wouldn't recommend him. Moving on to a very, very interesting category, the 8 million players. I have Jesus up top. I think he's just the best because he's such a good value for forward. You don't really have anybody in that 8 million range that's even competing with Jesus in the forward line. Like you have Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Bamford and who else, Watkins and all these other players and around the 8 million mark, but nobody is equally or even close to equal to Jesus at 8 million. I think he's fantastic value for money in the forward line. I think he's great. Yeah, definitely one of the best players in the forward line this season. After that, it kind of goes by just nailedness, if I'm totally honest, because the 8 millions are very interchangeable in my opinion. Like Diaz, Foden, Mahrez, Saka, very, very interchangeable players. The only difference is who's going to start every single week and who's going to do well. So Diaz, I think, is a great pick, probably the best pick, just because Liverpool is a fantastic team. And he's probably the most nailed left winger on that team. Nobody's really displacing him in that team. So I think Diaz is a fantastic pick. Saka is also a very, very good pick. Don't get me wrong. I just think that Arsenal is obviously a little bit worse than Liverpool. So I think that Saka, although he's equally as nailed as Diaz, I think Saka is just not going to get as many returns as Diaz. But I think it would be interesting to watch. I mean, if Saka somehow keeps penalties and Jesus isn't on penalties, I think you'd honestly switch those two around. I think Saka would definitely be the best player in that category, and then Jesus would probably be the third best. Foden and Mahrez, they again, like I said, very, very interchangeable. They both play for Man City. They both have a lot of rotation risks. It's just who's going to start. Foden hasn't been able to play at all this preseason just because of his vaccination status. So, will he be able to go straight back in, or will Pep slowly rotate him back in? Mahrez has been playing every single game. There's also been mention that he might be able to keep penalties. He said that he's open to whatever they decide. So, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Mahrez if he's going to take penalties. If he does take penalties and he's pretty nailed, he's going basically to the top of the list as well. He's going to be definitely above Diaz. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see. I look forward to seeing who's going to be the best asset this season in the Man City midfield. There's always one. It's going to be interesting to see. Okay, so up next is the 7.5 millions. Again, there weren't very many, so I only put 4 on the list because these are definitely the 4 best ones. Trent Alexander-Arnold, not even a question. If he's not on your team, you're doing something wrong. He should 100% be in everybody's teams. The fact that he's only in 50% of teams is actually ridiculous in my opinion. He is 100% the best player in the game, other than maybe Salah. He gets on it for the price that he is going to get probably the most points at 7.5 million by a long shot. Up next after him, I think Sancho is a really good differential at Manchester United right now. 7.5 million. It could be a little bit of a price savings if you don't have quite the amount of money to go up to the £8 million players. 7.5 million for Sancho could be really, really good. He looks really good in preseason, so definitely someone to keep your eyes out for. Wilson and Watkins, they're just great forwards for their teams. Watkins a little bit less than Wilson just because I think Newcastle are a better team. Unfortunately, that Wilson has, in his first 6 game weeks, he has Man City and Liverpool in game weeks, I think 2 and 4 or 5 or something like that. I can't really remember. But Wilson has some definitely difficult fixtures in the first few game weeks, so that kind of brings him down the list a little bit. I think Wilson, when he's fully fit in that Newcastle team, will be absolutely explosive. Definitely someone to keep an eye out for. Maybe when his fixtures get good, and Jesus' fixtures get bad, it could be a very easy swap. And also, you save 0.5 million. So I think those are 2 players to potentially watch, especially Wilson in particular. Sancho, if you can't afford the 8 million players, he's a good option. And then Trent Alexander-Arnold, he should be on your team if he's not. Fix that right now. So up next in a very saturated market is the £7 million players. I think it's very easy to say that the defense in the 7 millions are going to be the best value for money. Cancelo and Robertson, easily 2 of the best players in the game. If you can afford getting both of them in with Trent Alexander-Arnold, I definitely recommend it. It's a difficult thing to do, to be honest, to have. But yeah, if you can somehow afford Cancelo and Robertson and Trent, it's very difficult. I know. I think it's like 21.5 million just in three players, all on defense. It's a very expensive thing, but they are so good. They're going to get so many points. I think that's definitely a recommended strategy if you can pull it off. Grealish, again, very, very good player. He was Manchester City's man of the match against Bayern Munich in the preseason game. And if anything goes by if Pep has any patterns, it's second season syndrome is really good for their players. So Grealish is in his second season now. Let's see what he can do. Can he potentially push on here, do very well? I hope so. Let's find out. Up next is Tony. He's got some good opening fixtures. If you need a forward at around the 7 million mark, you can't afford Jesus, you can't afford Wilson. Tony, I think, is the third best option there. I would be concerned with Tony, though, because Eriksen is gone, and I think that Eriksen was a huge factor into why they did so well last season. So definitely, I think he's like a wait and see how Tony does without Eriksen. But Brentford still could do well this season, even without him, but we'll have to wait and see. It's a bit concerning. Last but not least, Coutinho at 7 million as well for Aston Villa. They've got great opening fixtures for probably the first 3 or 4, but after that, you're going to have to ship them out because their fixtures get so difficult. So if you want a Coutinho, that's great, but you're kind of booking in a transfer before the season even starts, which I don't really recommend, but it's something to keep your eye out for. So into the 6.5 millions, Manchester United's Rashford. I think he's definitely the best player in this category. I know that he doesn't have the best projected points. He actually has the lowest out of all of them, but projected points only mean so much. Obviously, we want to have the most projected points possible, but I mean, it doesn't really take into account everything that Rashford does on the field, and it doesn't take into account the eye test and all that stuff. I think Rashford and Manchester United have looked really, really good this preseason. I would definitely recommend getting at least one of their players in if you can afford it somehow. I think, yeah, Rashford is definitely someone I'm keeping my eye out for. Ward-Prowse, I think, is a good one. He's probably better for like a set and forget team if you're going to have a set and forget team, just because like Ward-Prowse's returns are so random and they can be against anybody because they're free kicks and corners that like it's very, very hard to pick out when Ward-Prowse is going to score one of his 5 free kick goals that he scores in the season. So he's one to consider, but I don't know if I'd get him in. I'd keep him on the sidelines. Mitrovic, 6.5 million as well from Fulham. I think he's a great asset, but their fixtures are just so bad to start the season. And Mitrovic is someone you probably want to wait and see how he does because every time he comes up from the championship, we've talked about this before, he comes up from the championship and does mediocre and then goes right back down to the championship and smashes it. And everyone thinks, oh, he's going to be amazing next season. And then you bring him in and he's mediocre again, and it's a continuous loop. And yeah, then we have Van Dijk and Trossard. I think Van Dijk, if you're going to get a 6.5 million Liverpool defender, you might as well just go up to Robertson if you can afford it. And then Trossard, I just don't love Brighton too much. I just don't think that he's the best player that you can bring in for 6.5 million. I think you just go for Rashford over Trossard. That's just my personal opinion, but the predicted points say otherwise. You guys decide what you think would be better. So yeah, the next category, £6 million player. I think it's a very interesting one. James and Chilwell at the top. They're just really good assets in my opinion. Chelsea have definitely been concerning in their preseason games, but I think it's definitely something to keep your eye out for the Chelsea players, just because like they can't be this bad all season. You know what I mean? So maybe to start off the season, stay away from them, watch and see how they do, see how well they play, see what they do with their defenders as well. If they bring in some more center backs, I mean, if Reece James is playing center back basically every single game, he's almost he's useless, to be honest. You definitely go for Chilwell then. But then if they keep Alonso, is Chilwell now worried about potential rotation risks? Like it's definitely concerning. So just keep an eye out on them for now. I think that they're probably like a wait and see, unfortunately, because they can be a really explosive and amazing assets. If you're a little bit more of a maverick, you could maybe go for it at the beginning of the season and just risk it. But I'm personally thinking about sticking away and just letting Chelsea figure out their own defensive problems before I jump onto their bandwagon. Martinelli at Arsenal, I think he's looking fantastic for Arsenal. He's probably going to play every single game, or not every single game, but he's probably going to play a majority of games because Smith Rowe still seems to be injured. There's nobody else that's going to go into the left wing spot other than Martinelli. So, yeah, 6.0 million Arsenal midfielder, I think is a great asset. Their team looks really good, and their fixtures to start the season off look amazing. So he's definitely someone I'd recommend. Diaz is an interesting one. I feel like basically the only reason you go for Diaz is if you have Cancelo and a 4.5 million goalkeeper, and you want Ederson. You drop Cancelo down to Diaz, and then you get Ederson in. Now you have two Man City defensive assets instead of one, and you don't have to worry about a 4.5 million keeper. That's really the only reason I think I'd bring in DS. Or if you want to get rid of James and you don't have any extra money, you might just go sideways from James to DS just until Chelsea get their fixtures, or not fixtures, their defense sorted out. And then Johnson from Nottingham Forest. I just think I wanted to put a forward in here because there's not a lot of £6 million forwards. Um, yeah, I just think that he could be a good option. I think Forest. I think a lot of like championship strikers, you have to come in expecting not very much from them. So you gotta just wait and see, and whichever one does really well, you pick that one. That's kind of what we did last season with Tony. We didn't know who was gonna be the best forward from the promoted sides last season. Tony came up, he looked really good, so everyone started picking him. I think that we could do the same thing with Johnson here. Okay, so into the 5.5 millions. I only have one goalkeeper here. You could argue that Lloris and Allison are also really good options, but in my opinion, Ederson is above all of them by quite a reasonable distance. So I think Ederson definitely is the one you pick. Man City just look amazing. Their defense is always good, and just, you never really need to worry about him. He's just going to be in the team, and you can set and forget him. Nothing to worry about. Neto at Wolves, I think, looks absolutely fantastic. Definitely like a template player, obviously, but Wolves forwards, not they don't usually do very well, but Raul Jimenez did go off injured in the preseason, which is unfortunate, but it does work out well for Neto because he was playing a lot more forward when that happened, and even when he was on the pitch, Neto was playing really well. He came back from long-term injuries from last season at 5.5 million. I think he's just a really, really good option, to be honest. Perisic will be a good option. I need to preface that. So Perisic at the beginning of the season, not a good option because he just hasn't got enough preseason games. I think Conte is going to bet him in slowly into the Spurs lineup. But once he is in that lineup, I think Perisic will be an absolutely fantastic player. So it's kind of like a wait and see. I know there's a lot of wait and sees in this video, but Perisic is definitely a wait and see. And once he's nailed into that team at left wing back, he's going to be fantastic. In his 30-minute debut against Rangers, he looked so good. So definitely keep an eye out for him. Fornals and Gordon are the other 4.5 or 5.5 million midfielders that I want to talk about. Fornals, since Yarmolenko's gone and Lanzini seems to also be going, I think is what the rumors are saying. Fornals at 5.5 million could be fantastic. He'd be nailed in that team. Even if he's not nailed in that team, West Ham are just such a good team that Fornals could potentially be just a good option as like a little bit more of like a rotation player. Just whenever he does play, he does well. He doesn't. I don't think he usually comes off the bench, but I don't really know West Ham that well, so we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully he plays. If he's nailed in that team, he could be a great option at West Ham. Gordon from Everton. I personally want to avoid Everton players as much as humanly possible, just because Everton looks so terrible. I think they could get relegated this season. I know they almost did last season. They look awful. So Gordon, if you need a 5.5 million midfielder and you don't like Neto and Fornals, I guess Gordon is the best option, but he's definitely not someone I'd recommend. Okay, so up next is the £5 million players. This might be a little bit biased now looking back on it, but I had Dyer up in first. Oh, you know what? Actually, I should have Zinchenko up top. Zinchenko, I think, is the best player for this team. I mean, he's going to be nailed in that left back spot unless Tierney comes in. But even when Tierney comes in, Zinchenko can play into a center mid position. So I think Zinchenko is definitely the best player. I have Dyer in second, even though I know they have him backwards on the list. I think he's just going to be nailed in that Tottenham defense. Tottenham's defense can look a lot better this season. He's going to do a lot better. He's also a free kick threat potentially, and he's also like any corners he's a threat on. So I think Dyer could be a very, very good asset. I just think Zinchenko is a little bit better in the defensive portion. In the goalkeepers, I actually think Ramsdale is a better player for the first 6 game weeks than Mendy would be. I just think that, like I said before, Chelsea's defense looks really, really ropey. They don't have enough center backs to really support the 3 in the back system. 4 at the back, they don't look as good. I worry about Chelsea's defense, and I don't think I'd recommend Mendy at this point. So I think Ramsdale, if you're going to pick a £5 million goalkeeper, Ramsdale will probably be the best one. And then after them is Bailey from Aston Villa. He's come on in the preseason, done very, very well, gotten a couple of goals, I think a couple of assists as well. If he can nail down a spot on that Aston Villa team to start the season off, he's got some great fixtures that you could bring in. I don't know if I'd recommend him right off the bat. Maybe it's a wait and see if he can get into that team and nail down a spot, and then wait once they have good fixtures again, bring him in. That's my plan at least, is to wait until they have good fixtures again. And if Bailey is a mainstay in that Aston Villa team, that he's the man that I'm going to go for. Up next, and we're almost at the end. 4.5 million. Pretty easy in my opinion. I think Raya and Sanchez are very, very close in the goalkeeper departments, but I think Raya is slightly better, so I think I'd pick him just because Brentford's fixtures are a little bit better from the beginning of the season. Dalot from Manchester United, I think, has looked really good in preseason. Definitely better than Wan-Bissaka, who I don't even think has really even played. So he could be a huge asset. 4.5 million to get into that Manchester United defense. It's still a top six team. I know they haven't been very good the last couple seasons, but they're still a top six team at the minimum. So Manchester United could be a good defense to get in on cheap from Dallo. Like I had before, Sanchez and Dunk. Brighton's defense is always very good. Don't get me wrong. I just think that there's better assets, especially considering the fixtures they have at the start of the season. I think they have Manchester United and a few other hard ones. I think they have Leicester as well, that could potentially be bad for them. Last but not least, Andreas Pereira from Fulham. He just moved from Manchester United. He's going to be on. It seems like he's on a lot of their set pieces at Fulham, which could be great. Could be kicking balls into Mitrovic and their center backs. So Andreas could be a potential player to keep your eye out for. I think he could be really, really good this season. I think he's great bench fodder. Probably one of the best bench fodders we've had in NFPL for a while. So definitely one to keep your eye on. And to wrap the video up with, we have the £4 million players. Not a lot here. As you can see, 3 out of the 4 of them are predicted to get 0 points. Gazaniga, Brandon Williams, and Patterson. They're just the best players that could potentially get points. So Brandon Williams has an asterisk beside him because he's at Manchester United right now, but could be moving to Brighton, similarly to what Nico Williams did. Nico Williams started at Liverpool, so that's why they put him at 4 million, and then he moved to Nottingham Forest and became a way better player. As you can see, predicted to get 14 points over the next 6 game weeks. That's great for a player that's going to sit on your bench and do absolutely nothing. The reason I put Gazaniga in, I guess he is the best player. He's the most likely goalkeeper at 4 million to actually get any minutes, just because I feel like promoted teams come up with these goalkeepers and anything could really happen. That's kind of what happened last season with Foster, and I think it could happen again with Fulham. He's probably the best of the backups that could displace the starter, is what Gazaniga is basically. But yeah, that's everything for me. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Let me know if you have any differing opinions about where I put players in this list, and I'd love to hear what you guys are going to do for your teams in the near future. Good luck, everybody. I look forward to chatting with you soon, and cheers.